Hello, everyone. We are here with Lorol Kurtz as our guest today. We're starting to have guests on this show, and tonight we're going to talk about a topic that really plagues astrologers, which is conflict as it pertains to Mars, transits and Mars and natal charts. And it's like, well, okay, we know conflict exists with Mars, but what do we do about it? I mean, that's the philosophical question here. And we have Alexander here, who's a non-astrologer, so he can kind of provide the kind of non-astrological viewpoint. But then we have Laurel, who's an astrologer. Jay-Z is definitely on that side of things. And okay, so we're going to deal with conflict today. So let's ask ourselves the question first. Should we be trying for world peace? Why or why not?
When I
Oh,
thought about, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I thought about the answer to some of these questions, I didn't necessarily pertain it to astrology, but um, I mean, I think of like trying for world peace as this ideal, but that it's not necessarily attainable or realistic. And so I had a lot of thoughts sort of in that context, though. I did see Alice Barkley Cat, who wrote Post-Colonial Astrology, kind of put Mars in the context of like sort of out of our control because it's something that we as like governmental bodies give and like taxpayers give a lot of money to via our tax dollars without consent, but it's turned against us, where it could be like spent on better things for making life better for people, but that's sort of an ideal versus what we really have power over.
Interesting. So you're saying that like tax dollars are spent on conflict, like war and things like that. But some people say that we should be spending those tax dollars on programs that build people up and not necessarily contributing to conflict. We should be contributing to healing. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, or just making life, a place where everybody can thrive and have access to all of their basic needs and beyond. But yeah.
So I got a question for all y'all. Is there a way in astrology that where everything could be aligned so that there is world peace? Is that even possible astrologically?
Jay-Z, what do you think? And what were you gonna say?
I would say no, and I was gonna say something along the lines of what Laurel said. Like it is, you said should you aim for world peace? And I think the answer to that is yes. And is it achievable? The answer is no. And I think that Mars is a lot of energy. So energy is what kind of fuels uh, people to do things, and like the universe itself tends towards entropy. And then there are all these sentient beings who are trying to combat the entropy by reordering things. And I think it's true. If the effort was spent in the flow of energy, of like things are disintegrating and tending towards chaos, and then the human race can use the energy of Mars to keep putting things back in order, but it would never be achievable. It's a dance.
Interesting.
That's interesting, but I like the idea that even though you may or may not know that or feel that, there's no real reason to not go that way. You may know that it's not possible, but there's no reason not to lean that way.
Mhm.
Because if you lean the other way, then, we're
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things I find problematic is like the yogis, like no offense, Jay-Z, but like it's like you're not the only yogi I deal with. Like my brother is an extreme yogi, and what the yogis do is beautiful, beautiful work. It's like trying for zenness and peace and all these kinds of things. But what I notice is when there's the denial of martial energies, like when there's the denial that there's a constant mover bringing conflict, like that it leaves people spiritually untethered of just like I keep doing my yoga and then I was still mad and like what it's just like it's not that we shouldn't try for world peace, but we should also shouldn't deny that peace is impossibly impossible.
Well, I think that's one that's one interpretation of what yogis stand for. I think that's a certain slice of yogis, not all of them. And I think that like for example, like there are like Shaolin temples where martial arts were created, right? Like there are warrior monks and everybody has a function in the temple the same way that everybody has a function in any community. And I think that there needs to be the different personalities, which you might, as an astrologer attribute to different people with different charts, right? So if you are achieving your telos, like you might say, and becoming a warrior monk, and then you might achieve your telos by becoming like somebody who sits in the middle of chaos and remains calm. Like there are different functions, I think.
Mhm.
You could just end up chasing your talos.
Good one.
Well, so is there anything detrimental in trying for world peace?
I mean, I just as individuals, we can like manifest our lives that way, but I think maybe having like an expectation that we can all unite in like the division that is like happening now and has always happened could be like there could be some like end in sight and just like a disappointment or like a criticism of others that maybe aren't acting in that way like that might be a negative just like even personally like to that individual who's always going to be like disappointed or maybe make others around them miserable for not like holding that same intention or value system. But yeah, I don't know other than that.
So you're saying if there's a chart that happens to be quite like violent or like a warrior chart and like trying to uphold peace when this person cannot do it, like you're kind of saying that that would be detrimental for that ecosystem around that human, perhaps.
Right, or even the person that's sort of like striving toward the ideal of peace, just to experience constant disappointment. However, I still think people should go that direction if that's like their if that's how they innately are, then that's their expression. There's nothing wrong with that, but just yeah, I guess I'm not articulating it quite how it is in my brain, but
Oh, you're doing great. Don't go sad. Don't let your Saturn and Gemini get you down. Okay,
yeah.
JC, so what is the Shaolin monk's role? Like, do they fight for peace or like what does the warrior monk do?
Well, I think I'm a little reaching outside the bounds of my actual knowledge here, so I might be just making some stuff up, but in my imagination, and like in my, what I would think is like, well, you have to defend the temple, right? Like for one thing. And you have to defend your perspective and your way of being in order to be able to teach it to other people as well. Because I do think that like different people have their different value systems, but some work better towards the good of all mankind. Right. So I think naturally, like people are always trying to convince other people, like, no, my way is right. No, my way is right. Because they really truly believe that their way is right because their way works for them. Right. And I think I guess I've veered off of like what a warrior monk would do, but I think of what a warrior monk would do is to develop a system that can be taught to other people so that they would have a choice of defending themselves and their value systems as well.
Sort of like the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah. Like
But
go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think um, you can't deny what you see. So leaning toward world peace is great, and I feel like we could all make our little increment known toward that, but we cannot deny what we see around us because that would be naive. We don't want to be naive, do we?
No.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm, as Andy knows, a kind of cynic. So maybe I lean that way, and so it prevents me from saying yes, world peace is attainable. But I think that I'm not that way. I think that in many ways you have to want what you want, whether you believe it's possible or not, but not to deny. I mean, you wouldn't walk up to people with 6 guns pointing at you and saying, "Give me your money," and then say, "Well, I'm really looking for world peace," because then you're toast, world toast.
Well, that brings me to the second question, which is do we believe in pacifism? Why or why not?
As
I
what?
find pacifism.
Well, I don't know. Let me look it up. What is
Some-
I guess it would be like in the case that Lumiere just brought up, it'd be like you don't do anything when they're pointing the guns at you. You just take a passive approach. I don't know. Define
Is
passive.
it pacifism or pacifism?
Pacifism is a belief that any violence, including war, is unjustifiable under any circumstances, and that all disputes should be settled by peaceful means.
Yeah, but of course there are a lot of questions about that, and the scenario with the guns all around you. Pacifism, to my way of thinking, means uh, either you say I'm going to give you my money, or I'm not going to give you my money, but I'm not going to fight you. If you give them money, well, they'll probably kill you anyway. But if you don't give them the money, they're going to kill you. And if you do give them the money, they might kill you anyway. But you not to fight against them. At least that's my understanding of it.
Well, I'm I'm not sure about like I think yeah, pacifism is kind of like judgmental towards anybody being involved in violence, not yourself responding in a nonviolent way. Is that true? I don't know.
Well, pacifists would.
I don't know.
I've been held up at gunpoint before, and I can tell you from my deep experience of feeling like, wow, this person could kill me right now, and they would really not care. Like you give them your everything you want, anything they want, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like my experience.
Well, it wasn't Gandhi. I mean, there have been pacifist activists where they fight war with pacifism. I mean, like that's. I mean, Laurel, do you know anything about pacifism?
Um, I, I I had some thoughts, just not necessarily in like response to what you're saying specifically, but just that fighting war with pacifism, again, like I see that as an ideal, whereas in reality there's so much oppression, and if pacifism is not working, and just people are going to like act out accordingly, and sometimes that does mean violence, and that would be like maybe like a justifiable means to like attain freedom, or so sort of like life or death. Though I do kind of see what Jay-Z is saying. I also have had a gun pointed at me for a 40, which I did give over, or I've been in situations where people are angry and violent or have weapons, where the best means was to like use de-escalation tools, which I actually are quite effective. And so like in that case, that is sort of a means of pacifism or like harm reduction. But yeah.
Yeah, I had a gun pointed at me, but not for robbery. This person was just kind of out there, and They just wanted to yell at me and attack me, and I talked them down. So I practice pacifism by just saying, "Look, what," until it's de-escalated. But it was that close. I mean, he would have shot me. The wrong word in the wrong place, he would have shot me. But I didn't try to take the gun from him or any of that kind of stuff. I wasn't going to do that. And I wouldn't do that because it's a boundary that I don't want to cross.
Well, one of the reasons I'm not into pacifism is because I'm more of an act utilitarianist. So, in act utilitarianism, they look at the greatest good of all concerned. So, for example, if you it's never right to shoot somebody, but if somebody's about to shoot 10 children, the right answer is to shoot somebody. Right? Because for the greatest good of all concerned, by shooting the shooter, you save 10 lives.
All
And so,
right. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there
Okay.
because I don't think you know that they would have shot the 10 kids. And I think that like us putting our judgment in place um, isn't like the right thing. And so yeah, like, because yeah, you could shoot them, but also their gun could have jammed, or the universe could have like interceded in some other way. How do you know? Like, how do you know they were going to kill those 10 kids? How do you know one of the kids couldn't have just turned around and said, wait, and then the person like realized, oh, wait, these are kids. I'm not going to shoot them. Like, how do you know what's gonna happen?
So what if you didn't shoot the person and then they shot 10 kids?
Well, to me, violence is like a swimming pool. You decide you're going to jump in or you're not going to jump in. And if you said to yourself, if I can't talk this guy down, because 9 times out of 10 it would be a guy, if I can't talk this guy down, he's going to shoot those kids. You can't talk him down. He shoots those kids. You still haven't jumped in the pool. And I'm not saying do this, but I'm saying if you want to adhere to your ethics, you have to be a pacifist no matter what's going on around you. And that's a hard decision, of course. And I don't know that I could do it in the moment because in the moment your emotions would be flared. But I mean, ethically, I mean, to me, taking a life is the line. And there's no dimension to it, nor is there a spectrum to it. So once you cross that line, you're in. You're wet.
Okay, let's expand this to astrology. So let's say you were dealing with a person who had a violent chart cyclically. Like, let's say it was a Moon Mars Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. And you don't know what that means, Lumiere, but the rest of us do. So
No, but
what
I
if
am a Scorpio.
okay, so what if somebody cyclically expressed violence to you? Let's say it's your partner or a neighbor or, a child in your classroom. And is pacifism the right response to that chart?
Well, that's something you all have to answer. I mean, so a person has a cyclically violent chart. Is it ever possible that it won't be cyclically violent? Can that ever happen in astrology? Either by talking about it with that person or or doing something in the chart to address it? Is there any
Well,
possibility that
that's what we do with astrological remediation, but
Yeah.
that takes an
Yeah.
adult. That's why I was like, real men learn their charts, because it's like unless you take it upon yourself to wrangle your genetic predisposition towards violence, you're going to just cyclically express it. I mean, it takes a lot to do remediation. It's like a spiritual practice. I mean, I don't know, Laura, what would you do if you're dealing with somebody who had kind of a violent chart? Would you just let them violate you, or what would you do?
No, of course not. I I was kind of also thinking about what you were saying about does it express in other ways aside from violence? And I mean, I think that there are like multiple ways that that could come about, and that And that like that could be somebody that's like intense, can intensely like work with people that do have violence in their lives, and like help through like deep healing and like going really deep into like the causes of that, etc. Like that could be one way that that configuration in Scorpio could play out. But yeah, like if I was dealing with somebody with that kind of chart, like on a personal level, then definitely they would be somebody that I would be avoid and feel fine avoiding them, like cut off. I mean, that could also come out in ways that like I think of like, stalking situations where you have little power, etc. But or like in a work context, you can't avoid that person unless, it does come to extremes. But and I work in a place that's very low barrier, so it wouldn't be unusual that I would have to work with somebody that, but most likely expresses that towards other people rather than me. So I don't know. It comes down to like what choices do I have? So yeah.
Yeah, I think you could notice the patterns and trends, right? Or as an astrologer, you would see them in the transits. And even if that other person didn't like know their chart or whatever, they've been living their life and living their life experience. So they probably understand that it's cyclical. Or if you help point it, if it's like the situation is such that you can help that point out to them that like, wait, this is cyclical, and or help them prepare for like there must be some feeling that they're having that they've felt before, or a precursor to a feeling or something, like some signs that this thing is coming on if it's truly cyclical, that helping them understand the signs of it. And like you're saying with remediation, I mean, you wrote the book
Mhm.
of like what are the substitute activities that you could do or you could have handy for yourself to redirect that energy. So if we're getting back into like Mars is a creator or a conduit of energy, then like the energy is going to come, and what are you going to do when that energy is here with it?
Yeah,
I,
this is like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I see that point of view because you're enlightening them, and it's still pacifism. And you're saying, well, look, it seems that you're going to be crazy on Thursday. Could you just stop and get some cucumbers instead?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Cooling.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I guess I'm a little crazy because it's like when abusive charts come at me, I just go right, I mirror them, like I abuse them right back. But and people would be like, Andy's crazy, like she's abusive or whatever. But it's like it's funny because the reason I've kind of come to that style is because I'll be locked in with certain charts on projects, like a musical project, and we have to get the show done. And like then it's like I can't quit on the project, so I have to either stand here and be like critiqued like 1,000 times or critique the person back, or like or like if I'm if I was doing a show with you guys and one of you guys started like attacking me, like I'm not gonna like press leave. I'm just gonna be like, oh well, I'll attack you back. Like I think it depends on a lot of people want me to always walk away from abusive charts, but as a remediation artist, I actually have to deal with some of the most abusive charts to remedy them. Like in order to teach them remedy, I have to deal with the person, and it takes a long time to like really like work with somebody through this process. And so it's like I think so sometimes it's like I'm not the biggest fan of pacifism. I'm more of a fighter because I guess I'm not allowed in some situations to walk away. And I think that's where pacifism falls short of like if you can't walk away and you're stuck, like if you were stuck in a ring with a bull, like I mean, what if you're stuck in the ring with the bull? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
then is it but what is the answer?
right. Yeah, I was thinking of, as you were saying, like it's like I mean, I definitely have had long relationships full of conflict, and it's um and I mean, some part of me likes conflict apparently if I'm in those relationships, and I engage in it, and we just kind of, I think there's like, change that can happen too between the two people and how they interact. Hopefully that's like the long game. Otherwise, though, I don't really want to be like in a toxic misery type situation forever because it's, comes like physically harm can manifest as like disease, etc. And just if you have a choice not to be there, then I'd pick that choice. But ultimately, but yeah, it's like sometimes there's karmic bounds that where you have to kind of learn those lessons, in my opinion. But yeah.
Well, so I have a question then. Can we have violent play that goes along with negotiated rules and boundaries that allows the energy to be expressed? It allows you to stay in the ring together. I mean, like there's like, whatever, MMA fighting or whatever, like that is violence, but it's not necessarily um conflict violence. It's a game
Mm.
that both are consenting to play. So I think it's the differences with like consensual violence and non-consensual violence.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or people that are in like the S&M kink community and there's consent and they can take it to any limit that the two people want to take it, and that's a one way to positively express that energy.
It makes me think of this game my brother thought of. It's called Knife Fight with Your Buddy. And it's where you take red Sharpies and you like fight with each other. You have a knife fight, and then wherever you got the red Sharpie cut, you're like, oh man, you cut me. But it was like just a Sharpie. Like that's totally an example of knife fight with your buddy. It was like, but yeah, I love that. Like a consent or a conflict consent container is something that I've learned to do with people I'm going to go into a long-term project with. I'd be like, all right, well, what are we going to do when we have conflict? Okay, now how do we handle that? What is our methodology? And I think that's where astrology comes in as a serious strength is we don't try for we're not trying for world peace. We're like, since we know world peace doesn't exist, what are we going to do here? Like, so I think in that way, we see a real strength there of accepting that conflict is cyclical and that perhaps Mars is involved, but that we can do this together. I mean, which brings me to my next question, which is it possible to fight fair? And what's that look like?
No, how does that interpret into astrology? Fighting fair. I don't know what that.
Well, I don't know. Astrology doesn't really teach us how to fight fair. We know that Mars transits and things bring fights, but if I open up my planets in transit book, it would be like on this transit, be careful of being a total jerk and like this and that. But it doesn't say traverse this Mars transit fairly. That's why we're having this episode. Is like, what do we do when we Mars transit? How can we fight fair?
I mean, again, it's kind of recognizing those patterns and like building some kind of intention around it, to where if you to minimize damage, if that's, if whatever it is worth fighting for, and like in the long run, sometimes minimizing the damage through fighting for something is, through intent, like that's one angle.
I don't like to fight. I could argue my point with and support my argument with some kind of evidence, empirical or otherwise. But I believe that to me, fighting is counterproductive. It doesn't, there's no end goal in fighting. It's just an episode that ends until the next episode starts. And I don't know that in any fight that I've ever had, verbal fight with anybody, that it has helped progress our relationship.
Well, some
And
people
maybe that's a gross generalization. I don't know, but
research shows that people are more productive and more creative when fighting.
I'd have to see that research. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not, but it happens.
Well, I think so I have a question about this, and it's like the concept of fighting fair, does that imply that there's some relationship or that you want to have some kind of a relationship? And is there a difference in our answers that we're giving if we're thinking of fighting as like belligerence or fighting as conflict of any kind?
Okay, let me give you an example. So I'm not breaking confidentiality. I'm not saying who these people are, but I had a couple come to me who couldn't stop fighting. And they were very much in love. They'd been together for like 10 years, could not stop fighting, tried everything. Their Marses were both at the same degree. Like they both had Mars at 6 degrees. So one of them would have a transit to their Mars, the other would have a transit to their Mars. And who's the culprit? Both of them. They both are Marsing at the same time. Like you guys are hard Marsing, whatever. You have PMS at the same time, passionate Mars syndrome, whatever. So here's an example of a couple that wants to stay together. They love each other very much, and they can't stop this Mars thing. So if they want to remain together, which they did, how do we teach them to Mars gracefully? But I hear what you're saying. It's like if you don't want to be in a relationship with that person, then you can walk away, which we've established is one of the big ways that a lot of people handle conflict is to walk away.
Yeah, and I don't, and even walking away briefly. So, I mean, walking away doesn't mean giving up. So you could walk away and say, okay, we're just going to bat heads together. So I'm walking away right now until we can talk about what's bugging us. I mean, and what you're implying, and I don't know, but what you're implying is that they can never do that because their fighting draws them together. Is that right? So they can't escape each other. I want to fight with you. I'm going to throw tomatoes at you. I can't stop myself. And so I'm going across the street and pick dandelions.
Well, I did prescribe, space because when you're in the same when the aura space and you're Marsing, you can feel it like it's an undercurrent that.
Mm.
But let's say they're on a road trip together and they're stuck in the car and they have this transit, like they cannot get away from each other. If they're in the house, they can go off and do their own projects, and that's, but is it possible to always avoid this? I don't know. I mean, unless they were never going to go anywhere together. I mean,
Yeah. What did you prescribe?
I prescribed that they read books on conflict theory, how to fight. Like, there are ways in conflict theory. And I know this is an annoying episode because like astrology goes in the face of like what we want to happen, which is this world peace thing. But I mean, as an astrologer, I work with the weirdest cases of like, just like, oh my God, these people are in love and they just can't stop with their Mars. Like, so I know it's annoying, but that's why we're doing it. Is because like I don't freaking know. Like, so I'm having them read conflict books and like study, like for example, in fair fighting, like you don't insult the other person. You might, there's
Right.
like nonviolent communication techniques. There are
Yeah.
all kinds of things you can try.
Right. And I've studied a little bit Marshall Rosenberg, and so has Jay-Z, I believe. Marshall Rosenberg, who's nonviolent communication, NVC. And so there are ways to get around your conflict if both are willing to participate in that. You have to have that to begin with. And the other thing to de-escalate that is to see how big the conflict is. And I've known people that go at it over you leave the cabinet doors open. So you have to figure out. Jay-Z's smiling; he's been there. So you have to figure out how important is this for me to argue? Is this what we want to beat each other up about?
The old pick your
And
battles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that
and
Marco's name has Mars in it.
you loved it. What? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Marshall's name has the word Mars in.
Mars and
Yeah.
Well, the other thing would be like having people work out, like go do 100 push-ups and then come back to the conflict, right? Like we do some purgation of Mars energy through like physical activity. That would be another one. Um,
have sex.
Oh, for sure. What's that whole thing, fight or fuck? Like they say if you're not, you know.
Yeah, the emotions that come up during any kind of conflict can be translated into sex.
Yeah,
All right, not any, but some.
yeah.
It's interesting. I had a partner whose Mars was exactly opposed mine, and he was like the first great love of my life. And we're still friends to this day, but it was like a magnet. Like, even though there was a lot of fighting and it was, it could get pretty bad, we just also like had to be around each other. This like important relationship for us both. And also we kind of like come to each other's rescue. Like I had a really bad issue and needed to get out of Portland, and he let me come and he rescued me. Which I think is also kind of a Martian attribute. But yeah, I got to go live with him in Detroit.
Interesting. Okay, so I do think we all agree that there are more graceful ways to fight than it's like so if you do have a fighty chart or you have fighty charts with your partner, try to study fighting fair, or what does that look like, or things like that. Um so let's talk about protests, because a lot of times protests occur when Mars pinch points happen. Like Mars and Pluto will come together in the sky and the people rush out to protest, or Mars and Sun are together and then the people start fighting in like as a collective. So how do we understand protest? Is that healthy? Is it unhealthy?
Yeah, I think it's like so that's another like it's funny, Laurel. I was thinking of Mars, and Mars is like the defender of the land as well. And it's kind of the same thing with protests. Like it's people go like feel the need to protest because they need to defend either themselves or other people who need their help in defending themselves, right? Like you protest against injustice.
Yeah. And so that's fighting probably, but you're coming together to do it. So what you end up doing is you have a large, in Portland, for example, the last protest, there were 85 gajillion people down here. And they were angry. We were all angry, but we were also using that energy to come together.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting concept for me to think about that.
Definitely.
Well, maybe some of those things apply. Like it is a fight, a protest is a fight, right? So like can we fight fair? Like is there harm reduction that we can do during the protest? Could we, if we accepted that protests occur cyclically on certain transits, could there be a protest, like how we were talking about a conflict container? Could the city and protesters make a container or a contract around protest, like a conflict, container? I mean, that's a really revolutionary thinking, right? Because I mean, how could we even organize such a thing? But I do think that's just something innovative to think about, is like it could be a contrived conflict, or not contrived, but I don't know. But I don't know. I guess riots, you can't really contain them.
Well, not
No.
riots, but protests. I think riots and
Or,
protests are different things.
yeah.
So a protest is an agreed and organized thing. Like you get permits for it, or like, there are police there who put up barriers who say, stay on that side of the barrier, and it's legal and allowed to protest, right? So I think that is when things when the two sides agree to a container and there is consent, the government consents that the people have to be allowed to protest. The people who are protesting consent to the rules of society and the law, and then it's like a guys, I guess a peaceful protest, right? Or that's how it's termed. And then if anybody exceeds the boundaries, then it turns into a riot. And that's when people violate the consent.
Right. The parameters.
And I
Yeah.
also think that it's completely justified to be like set off on something in the moment and not be able to go out and get a permit and like have mass gathering in the streets, and that and that also it's okay to inconvenience everything around. It's okay to march down freeways. It's okay to stop cars for a long period of time, because that's sometimes the thing that really has the most effect, even though it's going to piss a lot of people off. But it's, like there are things that are just enraging, and and like and that doesn't even necessarily qualify as a riot. And also usually when riots do happen at protests, it's like among a small minority, but that's the thing that gets focused on and like showed again and again and again in the media, but really like it's not representative of the whole. And so I hate the word riot, and I try not to use it. And even in cases of riots, like I can think of a few instances, it's not surprising that people would become that angry that would be the outcome, because we do live in like a really authoritarian militarized society, and like people are powerless. And so that's the normal reaction, is to be incredibly pissed off and finally like come to a boiling point, which is very Martian, and like have this explosive reaction. So I don't know. I think protest is really important, and I don't necessarily, I mean, yeah, yeah, I think the line between fair is is extremely like malleable. And anyway, yeah.
But the protests that we've been talking about is an agreement among people that this is the way we're going to do it. A riot is breaking that agreement. And the protests that, whether you're in the house and you've decided you don't like when your partner makes apple pie with pickle brine, or you're out in the streets protesting government, it's a common goal. And there is a goal that you want. So the goal can bring people together. And in your home, you can bring people together. And if, but the common goal that seems hard to grasp could make you so angry that you lose sight of the goal. I know in theater, it works best when everybody has the same vision in mind of that that the work, whatever it is, the work has to be paramount and everything else is second. And you could have lots of conflict and anger and fights and little match heads go off, but as long as the goal is in mind. And I think in a couple, for example, I'm not sure if the charts support this, but in a couple, there has to be a goal. So you go into a fight and you say, I don't like pickle brine in my apple pie. And then the other person says, well, it's what I grew up with and I really like it. So the goal is to have something you can both use, apple pie. So either one of you could come up with a lot of ideas. Okay, make it that way. I can't eat it. Or the other person could say, I know you don't like it. I'll make it your way, and then I'll add pickle brine to my slices. But the common goal is the apple pie. So I think you can let conflict diminish. And again, it's gross generalization, but you can make conflict diminish if you have a strong goals in mind. So in any relationship, the goal is to be together. So what can we do to be together? If we beat each other up, then this will happen, and we might not be together. So let us not do that. We're also dismissing ego, and ego could be the thing that makes somebody say, I want to beat the crap out of this person. And before they have a chance to reason it out, the ego just says, wham.
Well, could a conflict in a personal relationship be seen as a protest? Like if I get mad at my partner, am I protesting something? Because it seems like you guys agree with protests politically, but you don't necessarily agree with personal protests in relationship.
No, I do.
I do.
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I I don't like pickle brine in my apple pie. I'm just telling you that I don't like it. So that's my protest.
Jay-Z?
Well, I think protests are a mechanism of communication between the public and, say, the government. And to be clear, like in our society, you don't need a permit. I just want to make this extra clear. Like, you do not need a permit if you are reacting to current events. So just so that just to be explicit, that people know their rights. And when
Yeah.
I was saying like you have to get a permit, like you don't have to get a permit if you're protesting current events.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh-huh.
but it's like yeah, that's a form of communication between the public and the government. And in when you're talking about relationships, like relationships between two people, protesting things like uh I'm not gonna take out the trash because I don't like the way you did whatever. It, there seem because there are better forms of communication with transparency between two people, like talking to each other, then you can work things out in a better way than like staging a protest, it seems.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
some, yeah, definitely. Or just like protesting via using your voice, like, I don't like the way you just talked to me. And, I mean, I think that
Yeah.
that's also standing up, and that there's all kinds of room for both people to stand up, or, all kinds of relationships, not necessarily just between two people, but there's room to stand up and speak out. And that's
And
different than, I guess, what I was imagining with like the conflict of like always like being angry. Like I can't handle that shit. Like it's just, yeah, that's where I want to, like, I need to, you to leave. I want to be by myself.
yeah. Oh, it's Thursday. Okay, bye.
Well, this brings me to my
Bye.
next question, which is, what about expressionism versus repressionism of Mars energy? Like, is it healthy to say like you're angry, just calm down? Is that healthy, or do we want people to express that?
Well, I don't know the people. I can only speak as a father with kids. I don't know that people are capable of that. And calming down helps you, not them. So, um,
Yeah.
my 14-year-old has a big stick. He hasn't used it lately, but when he was younger, he just went out back and beat the weeds.
Mhm.
And I'd say, looks like you're angry about something. So, yeah, school, blah, 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 blah. I'd say, okay, there's your stick. And he went out and beat weeds. And sure, I'm sure weeds scream, but I didn't hear them.
Okay. So that's an example of a healthy expressionism, right? I mean, well, unless the weeds are screaming, but um,
Right.
anyone else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think telling someone who's actively angry just calm down is really an
Yeah,
Ah,
that would be the wrong thing.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I see this little flame here. Let's pour some gas on it.
Yeah. I think too about like just compatibility. Are all Mars express themselves differently? I mean, some Mars people have to throw pots and pans, and like if there's compatibility like among their partners, then like maybe that's just fine. But like, you know, so
Well, I think what
Yeah,
astrologers say here is that Mars contributes to the buildup of iron in the system. You know, Mars as a planet is full of iron. There's a bunch of Mars redhead studies of people born with Mars rising. They have more red hair than people who aren't born with Mars rising. And there's a lot more iron in red hair. And so, and then also when women get their periods, they iron dump. You know, you fill up with iron, you get PMS, and then you dump all that iron out. And so, if we said that there is the buildup of iron in the system, of people who are angry, right? Like that it's like repression isn't going to purge that iron or the ionizing of tissue or whatever is causing this martialism from the, like some people say when you have PMS you feel like your senses are on the outside of your body, like you actually feel different when you're full of iron, you know. So I think, you know, my daughter would say that when women have PMS they're strong as a man or they're like as mad as a man or what, you know. It's like, so I mean I think the astrology here would say that repression of anger is actually a cause of disease. Like Laura was saying that being too angry is like a disease issue. And I think the repression of it is where we get like disease in some ways.
I actually have that in my notes. I feel like either extreme is true, but like that there's, yeah. I see
Yeah,
what you mean.
repression means you're not dealing with it.
Right. But I live with somebody that is uh has a lot of Martian reactions where he impulsively gets really, really angry, and he's got health problems that are a result of that because that's a stressor on the body. And so, yeah.
Well, that's where we get into things like bloodletting. I mean, a lot of martial people get, like, for example, a lot of tattoos, and like the ancients would always say, like, you should bloodlet them or whatever. That's why I'm always threatening the metal dudes. I'm gonna bloodlet you, but it's just I think a lot of really fiercely martial people are heavily tattooed, and it's that bloodletting thing. I mean, I think buildup of iron, let it out. Buildup of iron, let it out. And I think that maybe the way to handle that disease in that person isn't necessarily saying, calm down, don't be so angry, but like, how can we help you handle your humors? You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got 3 minutes. Anyone have any comments? I have one more question for us. Okay.
Let's have it.
Isn't this a fun episode, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you for
It
coming
is.
on.
Yeah.
Laura, you got to come on more often. Okay. Okay.
As long as I get the questions in advance. Go ahead.
Okay, you can have them with your Mercury Saturn. We'll give you the questions.
Yeah.
These guys
Ooh,
are
wait, you
experts.
get the questions in advance?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Otherwise,
found
I
that
won't
out
talk.
yesterday, Jay-Z. She said that she gave her the questions in advance, and we're just guinea pigs here.
Yeah, I
Dang.
know.
Right.
I
Talk
still
about
didn't rock it like you
unfair
did.
fighting.
Yeah.
Oh, you did
Well.
great, Laurel. Okay,
No,
okay.
there's no fairness like
We're all just supposed to be our own charts. Okay.
Ooh,
What?
now I'm mad.
Okay,
Fight.
what
That's what
do
she thought she was going to start a fight.
Yeah.
All right, you guys know if you start fighting, I would not turn off the camera. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So, what is the best thing to do when you are attacked?
Defend yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not you shouldn't be a
however that may be.
you shouldn't be a pacifist.
No,
No.
but like you
Well,
can do like one of those Aikido style moves where you divert their energy into a way that is like not harmful towards you or anything else. You know, that you can redirect their energy to only harm themselves, right?
Aikido
Yeah.
is a good one. Laurel?
Well, I used to walk around with this like plastic cat ear thingy on my hand because I decided like the best way that I could defend myself walking home in the dark through like in downtown Portland that was to be like stabby, and I was like I don't think I could defend myself through like my physical prowess, or like I would never carry a gun, but like I imagine that I could like stab someone in the throat if I needed to, although that wouldn't be my preference. I would rather like verbally de-escalate the situation, but that's not always, you know, stuff happens. I've been punched, I've been, so I'm prepared.
Nice.
I would defend myself.
Lumiere.
Um, I would just try and stop them without hurting them, not cross the line to hurt them, but try and stop them, whatever I had to do to stop them. I was only attacked twice, really, that I can remember, but I'm a million years old, so maybe I don't remember. One was that guy I just told you about, and he just had a gun and he was just out there, and I talked him down. The other time was in the Battery, I was waiting for the Staten Island ferry and they got mugged. And I just treated it like it was nothing. And I didn't have much to steal. And I had my license and my social security card in my shoe. So, I could pull out my pockets and say, and they took what I had, but it wasn't much. So I really haven't had to defend myself.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you for wrangling some of the hardest questions that we deal with. This was not an
What are we
easy.
going to talk about next week, Uncle Bob?
Next week, we're talking about astrology as identity politics.
Ooh,
As
I love the
perspective.
discussion.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about identity lately. That's great.
All right, Laurel, well, you better expect some plants from me in the mail because you earned 2 videos, 2 plants. You're getting some plants.
And I'm making you
I,
some art still. It's on my, I actually put it on
I,
my calendar for every single day until I do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
and I see I got mail from you today, but I haven't been home yet. So thank you for that.
Nice. I just pretend that I live next door to you. I'm always like, here's the thing. Here's the thing. All right, you guys,
You,
I'll see you
all
later.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.